That's how many new residents Florida gained between July 2019 and July 2020, according to a recent Miami Herald article, coming in number 2 only to the great state of Texas, which got considerably more people in the same time frame, over 373,000 people. So Florida is not even a close second if you ask me. But around this time last year, I made this video about why everyone is moving to Florida, and in case you missed that, you can go ahead and check it out. The link is down below. But back then, when I made that video, the Miami Herald put out a similar article citing the fact that Florida was now the #1 state that everyone is moving to, and it looks like we only held that crown for a brief period of time, about 1 year, and prior to that, actually it was Texas for the prior 5 years, and so now it's Texas again. So pretty much Florida was the #1 spot for a little while, and it's back to being Texas now. I think there's probably a couple of factors that go into this, and this is just my opinion. One of them being that Texas gets a lot of California transplants. One of the main reasons I think that's the case is because Texas is a lot closer to California, so it's much easier for somebody to pack everything up in the U-Haul and drive a few states over and be at Texas. And also the fact that Texas is a large state, so also a lot more people are moving to Texas because Texas has a lot more room for people to move to. It borders more states than Florida, and it's more centralized. So I think that's probably part of the reason why Texas is gaining more residents. And I don't know a whole lot about Texas, but I'm willing to bet the cost of living in Texas is probably considerably lower in most areas than it is in Florida. But let's talk about this population boom here in Florida for a second. The article cites that part of it might be because of the pandemic. I highly doubt that, since the data was collected between July 2019 and July 2020, which in most of that time we didn't even know about the pandemic. Only in early 2020 we started hearing about it, and then in March we started getting those lockdowns. So most of this data was collected before we even knew what the pandemic was, right? So most likely it's not because of that. But there are a couple factors here that I think are contributing to this. Number one, this article says that this data includes births in the state. So there's a lot of babies being born here. So that population boom includes all of the new babies being born in Florida, as well as all the transplants moving in. And you might not know this, but Florida has a lot of anchor babies being born in the state, and that's a discussion for another video. But basically, an anchor baby is when someone from another country comes here, has a baby, and they are not US citizens, but because their kid was born on US soil, it makes their child a US citizen, and that gives them hope that one day they might be able to get their US citizenship from their child. And I think the practice is very wrong, and these people are just exploiting a loophole that we have in the US, which should be closed. But I do see that happening all the time here, especially in Miami. You have a lot of people that come here from Europe and Russia and other countries, and they have a baby here and it becomes American, and that's part of this data set. So obviously people are moving here for the beautiful beaches and the extra freedom that you don't get in places like California and New York and New Jersey, where the lockdowns are super strict and they're putting into place terrible policies that are putting people out of business, etc. Those things I think are a huge driver that bring people in here. You know, people want to be in a place where we have nice weather all year round. The cost of living is not nearly as high as it is in those places, and also the quality of life is very high here. So obviously that's a huge drawing factor for Florida. But also, if you scroll down a little bit further in this article, it turns out that this level of growth for Florida is not unusual. We had the same level of growth from the prior year. So the same 2018 to 2019 period, the population here in Florida grew by 1.12%, and that just seems to be pretty normal for Florida. So it's pretty safe to say that our influx of population is pretty steady on a yearly basis. And the only reason we're number 2 is because Texas is huge, it's centralized, and probably a lot more people prefer the cost of living in Texas versus Florida. One thing this article doesn't talk about though, which I might cover here in a future video, is how many people actually leave Florida. Because in my experience living here in Miami now for about 13 years, I see a lot of people come and they also go. A lot of people that move here, they stay for 2-3 years, maybe even less than that, and a lot of them find a better opportunity somewhere else in another state and they leave, or they move back to where they came from because they decide they don't like it here. And even though we get a large influx of population each year here in Florida, this doesn't take into account all the people that actually leave Florida every year too. So I don't think it's nearly as drastic as this points out. So we are one of the highest states that people move to, but I think it's also one of the highest states that people leave as well, and I'll cover that in a future video. So anyone who's still watching, you probably noticed that I'm back in the bedroom shooting in my normal location. I've had some criticism in the past about, oh, you're shooting in front of this guitar amp and your guitar stuff, nobody cares about that, we want to see outside and this and that. Well, obviously you guys see I've been trying to make more videos outside for you, but sometimes it's not always possible due to time constraints for myself and also due to the weather. So I'm actually working on putting together a new set here in the bedroom, which I think you're gonna like. It's gonna look pretty cool, just so I can make more videos inside like this one, some more bite-sized content that I can put out, along with the outdoor videos that I always make too. So make sure you guys check out my next video right over here, and I'll see you guys over there.